Okay. There we go. Today's October 27th, 1987, and we're at the home of Gertrude Harrod. Gertrude Smith Harrod.
Yes.
On Terry Lane here in Louisville, Kentucky. And I understand she's lived here for 44 years. And we were just getting a little background on her family and so forth. Let me start again with your full name.
Gertrude Frances Harrod.
Gertrude Frances Harrod. And your mother and father's names were?
Ella Wash.
Ella?
Ella Wash.
Wash.
And my father's name was James C. Smith.
James C. And what does C stand for, you remember?
Calvin.
Calvin. And your mother's maiden name was?
Wash.
Wash.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's right. And your grandparents, you said you had a Benjamin Allen Wash, was your grandfather on your mother's side.
Allen Benjamin was his name.
Oh, yeah?
That first part tells about his father.
Oh, the first part tells about Allen Benjamin's father,
Yeah.
who was Benjamin Allen.
Right.
Oh, okay. And it says that Allen Benjamin was born on November 30th, 1842. And he lived to the ripe old age of 80-something, or 79, I believe, in 1920.
No, he was 80. He'd had his 80th birthday before he
He already
died.
had his 80th birthday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you say they were from around Anderson County?
Yes.
Yeah, the Washes.
Uh-huh.
And Allen Benjamin Wash was a soldier in the Confederate Army.
That's right.
And they had battles around, or skirmishes as they called them, around
Mm-hmm.
Kentucky and Tennessee.
Yes.
And he was taken as a prisoner and taken to Richmond, Virginia, was it, at the end?
No, they took him to Indiana, to a prison up there.
Mm-hmm.
And then got ready to discharge him, and they took to Richmond, Virginia. And he had to walk home. They gave him nothing.
Yeah. And so the pictures you see of the Confederate shows with the guy walking in like in Gone with the Wind, he comes walking down the lane in all his tattered clothes and everything. I guess that was something
That was true.
Yeah.
And some man that had a store along the way gave him a pair of shoes because his shoes were worn completely out.
Ah. How about that? And what sort of stories did he tell you about the war? I mean, did he describe any of the skirmishes or any of his...
Oh, he described a storm they had down in Tennessee.
A storm? While they were out on the countryside?
Yes, uh-huh.
And it was something that he
It
did...
was a very severe storm.
Yeah,
Trees down and all that.
yeah. And what sort of impressions did he give you about the war, the Civil War?
Oh, he was very bitter about the whole thing.
Was he? Yeah. Well...
See, he was just about 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And he had slaves. So they called him a Southern sympathizer. And they arrested him and brought him down here. And he had to sign an oath of allegiance before they let him loose. So when he went home, he changed his name and joined the Confederate Army.
Is that right? What did he change his name to, do you know?
Albert Welch. So his name,
Yeah.
or his initials would be the same.
I see.
And he very nearly got exposed one time. Somebody that he knew was put in the prison. And he said, well, I know you. And he had a real hard time shutting him up. You know, they called them deserters, and they would have been shot.
Yeah, yeah. I see. Well, you're the first person that I've talked to that had any first-hand, or I guess second-hand knowledge of the Civil War.
And I didn't listen to as many stories as I should have.
It would have been nice if we could have had his videotape made. And he told his own stories.
It really would.
Yeah. And you told me that there were 8 children in your family?
Yes.
And could you run through the names again there? Do you still have that list? There was George and... And you?
Me and Dorothy and Jane. Tell them the rest of them you remember.
Lucian, Bertram, and James Breckenridge.
And Hazel was the one that died.
Yeah. Back in those times, it wasn't uncommon for a younger person to die. You know, today it's uncommon that somebody that hasn't reached an older age dies. But in those days, they had consumption and all sorts of things for.
Well, my grandmother had 12 children, but a number of them died in childhood.
Yeah.
Childhood diseases.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. As the second to the oldest, you had a lot of chores and responsibilities around the house in keeping care of the younger ones, and you said you had to bring water from the spring. Was it a very long way to?
No, it wasn't too far.
Wasn't too far.
They called it the Dam Spring.
The dam spring. Did the dam spring ever freeze over?
No, it never did.
Never did.
It was quite a spring. It came out over a ledge.
Yeah.
But see, they had a mill down near my grandfather's place. They called it Lane's Mill. It was a big 3-story stone mill.
Uh-huh.
And they had a dam. That's why they called it a dam spring.
Oh, I see. Okay. And you had to chop wood, and I guess you had a wood-burning cook stove.
I didn't chop the wood.
No. I guess you had brothers.
I carried it in sometimes.
Yeah. And they had a wood-burning cook stove?
Yes.
Yeah. And you said that your light was provided by kerosene lamps?
Uh-huh.
And there was no electricity, and there was no telephone. And
the telephones were very few.
Very few.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you could possibly go over to one of the neighbors' house should there be need to make.
Nobody real near.
Nobody near though. Yeah. And you said that your media, your source of information about the goings on in the world were in the form of the Courier Journal at that time.
Yes, and the State Journal. He took both papers.
Had a state journal.
That's Frankfurt paper.
Is that still published, do you know?
Yes.
Uh-huh. Okay. And let's see. As a child there, I was asking what sort of entertainment that you had, as well as the chores and everything that you had, but what sort of entertainment did you have? What sort of games and...
Well, we had very few toys.
Yeah.
So the boys liked to play marble and ball.
Yeah.
And the girls made playhouses.
Had a doll, maybe?
Oh, yes, we had a doll.
Did you make clothes for your doll?
Sometimes.
Sometimes? Okay, back then, the skills that ladies developed were a little different than they develop nowadays. I mean, you probably learned to sew and cook and maybe preserve foods.
I didn't learn much of that because I was taking care of the children while my mother did.
Your mother did the sewing? And
she was a very capable person.
Yeah. I guess she had a pedal-operated sewing machine, perhaps?
Yes.
Yeah, and she'd sit there and pedal and sew and make dresses for the girls and
she even made clothes for the boys.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And I suppose she did some preserving and canning and...
Yes.
And perhaps y'all killed hogs?
Yeah, we killed about 6.
Killed hogs and then made sausage and had country ham and shoulder and things like that?
Yes. We furnished most of our own food.
Yeah. Had a big garden maybe?
Had a big garden. We had cabbage and potatoes and things like that in the wintertime, turnips.
Yeah. Now, how did you preserve those? Did you have a cellar that you put your foodstuffs in, or did you?
Well, they used to bury the turnips and potatoes.
Bury the turnips? They'd have an earth mound?
Uh-huh.
Is that what they called it?
But we had a cellar where we kept our canned goods.
Yeah. And as far as refrigeration goes, there were no refrigerators. Did you have an ice box?
No.
Did you keep stuff cold in the spring? Or?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've heard stories about people that had ice houses and they would cut ice off the creeks and lakes.
I guess they were the more well-to-do.
Yeah. Okay. You told me that you were born in December. Oh no, was it January?
January.
19?
January 19th, 1906.
1906. Okay. And some of the goings on at that time. If you went down and read the paper, maybe you got news about the First World War.
Oh yes, I had a cousin that joined the Navy when he was 15.
Yeah.
And then he found out it wasn't so funny and he wanted his mother to get him out.
Did she get him out?
Yes, she got him out.
Yeah. She changed his mind, huh? Oh, that's cute. Okay, in 1918, there was a Spanish influenza that went around and affected quite a lot of people.
Yes.
Did your family get sick?
Yes, we all had flu, but my mother was pregnant at the time, which was a very dangerous situation at that time.
Yeah.
But she survived. A lot of people didn't.
Yeah.
And my uncle worked at Camp Taylor. He wanted to join the Army. He had heard his father tell all these tales and it sounded so romantic to him, you know. And he had been in the Army, but he got a heart problem and he was discharged. And he tried to join every service and couldn't. So he went to work as a carpenter at Camp Taylor. It was being built at that time. And he caught the flu and came home and died.
Yeah. I understood a lot of people did die from it. You were real sick yourself?
No, I had a fairly light case. But some of the others had more of a time than I did.
Yeah. You said you lost a sister, Hazel. It would be fairly close to that time that she died. Not from the flu, though, huh?
No, she died from appendicitis.
Is that a fact? That's something. Okay. And do you remember where you were or hearing about the end of the First World War?
Oh, yes.
Yeah? Do you remember anything about that particular? Did you have a celebration, maybe? Glad to see somebody come back home, or what was the situation there about that time?
Well, we were so sad about so many people dying, you know,
Yeah.
that I don't remember any celebration.
Yeah. Okay. I understood that some of the ladies knitted things for the war effort. The Red Cross would provide the yarn, and you would maybe knit a neck warmer or something like that. Did you do anything like that?
My sister did.
She was a knitter?
Uh-huh. But my mother made shirts.
Made shirts for the soldiers?
Uh-huh.
And I guess maybe who provided the material?
The people that were in charge of it.
Yeah, okay. Let's see, getting on into the 20s there, you were 15 or 16. You said you went to school at Nineveh?
Well, that was grade school.
Grade school?
And I went to Kavanaugh.
Kavanaugh.
Did you ever hear of Kavanaugh?
I don't think I've heard of Kavanaugh. Is it close to Lawrenceburg? Or?
It is in Lawrenceburg.
It is.
Yes, it's not there anymore, of course. They've changed it to Anderson County High.
Oh, okay.
But this old lady had a great big house. I've got a picture of it in there in that Lawrenceburg book.
Yeah.
And so she started a private school.
Was her name Kavanaugh?
Her name was Kavanaugh.
Uh-huh.
And so then she influenced the county to give her the high school.
Uh-huh.
And so all the county students went to Kavanaugh High School.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, that's pretty good.
So I went there for 2 years.
How many were in your class? 10, 15, something like that?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Getting on into the 20s there, Harding was elected, and the ladies got the right to vote, and Prohibition started. A lot of things happened there at the start of the 20s. There weren't any bootleggers around Lawrenceburg now, were there?
Lots of them.
Anybody that you knew?
Yes, indeed.
Well, what sort of stories did you get about the bootleggers? Anything in particular they have?
They were making booze on the kitchen stove and everything else.
They were making it on the kitchen stove?
Some of them did.
You didn't get any recipes yourself, did you?
No, didn't do it. I never did drink.
Oh, okay. Well, in the 20s there, the ladies started to, what was it they called, bob their hair?
Yeah, and I had a real set to it with my mother because she was gone one day and I bobbed my own hair.
Bobbed your own?
It had always been long.
Oh, I bet that.
Wore it in long braids.
Did you get a whipping?
No, but I got a tongue lashing.
I bet you did. How about your dad? He say anything about that?
Well, he didn't like it either.
I heard stories that the ladies first started to what they call bob their hair, and that sometimes it caused divorces and stuff like that.
Oh, yes. It wasn't very well thought of.
Yeah, but it was just the thing to do. And I guess the 20s, was that a happy time period for you? Did you?
Most of it.
It was like you were a teenager at the time, and they had the changes in styles, the flapper outfits, and
Oh, yes.
did you Charleston?
Yes.
Were you pretty good?
No, I don't think so.
Good enough, though, huh?
I like to square dance.
Oh yeah? They have some good callers there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And people that have the dances in their home, you know, move all the furniture out.
Roll up the carpet and go for it. Well, I guess you get maybe 2-3 squares in a room, something like that. Maybe
Yes.
8 or 12 people, something.
In
like that.
our house, we had a big old room because it was a log house that had been there for a long time, a 2-story,
Uh-huh.
and they had high ceilings and big rooms.
Would your dad play the fiddle for those?
Yes, uh-huh.
Yeah. He played I guess the fiddle. You call it not the violin, it was a fiddle?
It's a fiddle.
Yeah. Well, maybe you're musically inclined yourself if your father played the fiddle. Did you try to play anything?
I played the organ when I was younger.
Yeah. I guess maybe at church you had to go to find an organ to play, or did you have one at home?
No, I had one at home.
Did you?
Parlor organ, they called it.
Well, that's pretty good. In the 20s, the radio became more popular, and toward the latter part of the 20s, a lot of people had radios. Do you remember your first encounter with the radio?
Well, my grandfather had that, too.
He had a radio, a crystal set, or?
It was I think it is made out of an oatmeal box or something.
Well, what did you think about hearing sounds come over a radio? I mean, people today, they grow up with it, and it's there all the time, but you had the opportunity to be old enough to be aware when you first heard it. What was it like to hear radio for the first time?
Well, there's a lot of static.
Yeah. Any programs that you'd like to tune into? Maybe there was music, or?
Oh, yes. I used to go over to neighbors, and they had a better radio, and we listened to Lum and Abner.
Lum and Abner. Uh-huh. Okay. Let's see, there was Fibber, McGee, and Molly, and well, that might have come along a little after.
Yeah, I think it came along later.
Amos and Andy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of teams on there. Well, can you describe, you're getting into, we're talking about the latter 20s there, and you're in your teens and early 20s yourself. What was a date like, when you had your beau came over, and did he take you someplace, or did y'all just have an evening to...
Have an evening at home, mostly.
At home? With the rest of the family? That must have been exciting.
Yes, when my husband used to come up to see me, there was a place where the lock had been in the door that went into the living room.
Uh-huh, yeah. Like
and
a hole where...
I'd look up, and there was my little brothers with a big blue eye.
Yeah. It must have been tough courting back then with all the kids around, huh?
No, I never did mind the kid.
It wasn't too bad. Well, how did you meet your husband?
Well, I taught school, at Flat Creek, Kentucky. That's way down on the Kentucky River, very isolated.
Uh-huh.
And so I went back to visit a friend of mine down there, and he came up for Christmas.
Uh-huh. So you
and in April we were married.
Okay, now let's see, what year was that you were married?
1928.
1928, and you were 22?
22.
Yeah. So you were old enough to get married then, weren't you?
I was almost an old maid.
1928. Let's see, what attracted you to, what was this fellow's name? Leo?
Leo Harrod.
Leo, what was his middle name?
He had no middle name.
Leo.
That was it.
Well, he didn't take long to write his name then, did he? Okay. Well, tell me about this guy. What was it attracted you to this fella here?
Well, he offered to take me home in the first place.
From Flat Creek to...
to my home in Farmdale.
Yeah. That was quite a gesture. It was a pretty good distance, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
But he lived down here at the time.
Yeah. And what mode of transportation did he take you home?
Well, he had a car.
Had a car, okay.
He was very prosperous in the early 20s because he belonged to a builders association. Built houses down here.
Yeah. Well, and he was nice, and that's why you were attracted to him, huh?
Yes.
Was he a good-looking fella?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, was it love at first sight, or did something that grew on you?
No, I think it was love at first sight.
For you or for both of you?
Well, I think it was for him too.
Yeah, okay.
Because he followed that up.
Yeah. So, and you didn't really know him very long before you got married? Is that how long did you know him? You said you got
Just
married?
from Christmas till April.
From Christmas to April?
But his aunt lives close to us. Several members of his families I knew.
Oh, I see. Okay. And you got married in 1928. That was right after Lindbergh's first flight.
Yes.
7. I guess you...
Oh, I was really thrilled about that.
Yeah? Were you nervous? It was like, I guess in the early 60s, we sat around the television and watched the first space flight. I guess the news of Lindbergh's flight was just about as exciting, you know, somebody risking their neck to do something first there.
Well, the news didn't get around as fast as it does now.
No. Okay. And so when
We went to see the first talkie.
Oh yeah, we hadn't talked about movies. I guess you went to see some silent movies. Did they have a movie
yes.
theater in Lawrenceburg?
In Frankfurt they did, and they had one in Lawrenceburg too.
Yeah.
They don't anymore, but they used to.
Yeah. And so you'd go see the silent movies to start with. And then you saw the first talkie, what was it, the jazz singer?
Uh-huh.
With Al Jolson in it? What did you think about that?
Oh, I thought it was marvelous.
Yeah.
I saw several that summer.
Yeah, several talkies other than that one.
Uh-huh.
Were you going with your husband at that time when you went to...
No, I was already married.
You were already married when the talkies came along. Okay.
Well, see, they had talkies here a long time before they did the rural.
Oh, I see. So, when you got married, where did you live?
Lived on Grand Avenue.
Grand Avenue here in Louisville. Okay.
Niggertown now.
So to speak. Okay. Let's see, you lived down there, and just after you got married, not too long, there was a stock market crash at 29.
Yes, I know.
I guess your husband in the building business at that time, was he?
No, he got a job at Reynolds Metal Company. And so they laid him off, and we moved to Shelby County. And we stayed out on the farm for several years. Then we moved back to Anderson County and stayed there quite a while. And the children were beginning to get old enough to go to school, and it wasn't convenient, so we came back down here.
Well, When did your first child come along?
1929,
1929.
July the
Your
1st.
first child and the market crash came in the same year, huh?
Yeah.
And who was that?
Catherine.
Catherine, okay. 29. And something that other women that will be watching this in the future might relate to. What was it like, having your first child is a big event, right?
Yes.
Well, tell me about maybe a little story about your first pregnancy and child. Was it a routine pregnancy, easy?
Well, in a way it was, but I had toxemia and almost passed out after she was born. She was born the 1st, and I got sick the 4th.
Uh-huh.
And I went to a hospital in Shelbyville.
You had natural childbirth at that time, then?
Yes.
And not very painful?
No.
Was it?
No, it wasn't. I had an easy time.
Is that right? Well, ladies today, I hear war stories about pregnancy, about the terrible times that they have and how much pain is involved, but it didn't seem like that occurred with your first pregnancy.
No.
Okay. And how many children do you have altogether?
7.
7, okay. So they'll be coming along in 1930, 32, 34, something like that?
One in 1932.
One in 32. Okay, and you were living in Shelbyville at that time, maybe? Or Shelby County?
No, I was still living in Anderson County. We lived on a farm up there for about 3 years, I think.
Okay.
And then we wanted to get out on account of the children having a place to go to school.
Uh-huh.
So he got a job at the tobacco warehouse in Shelbyville and moved down there and stayed a year.
Okay. Some of the news items going on in the early 30s there, of course, if you're interested in Lindbergh's flight, you heard about Lindbergh's baby being kidnapped around
Oh, yes.
32.
People were so upset about that.
Yeah. It was sort of a nationwide thing that
Yes.
people followed, and they found babies ever so often that claimed to be the Lindbergh baby and things like that.
Yeah, no, I think they did, but they found the baby,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Roosevelt was president in about 32 there, or
Oh, yes.
did you like Roosevelt pretty well?
Well, my mother thought he was God.
Is that right? And he had fireside chats. Did you listen to those?
Oh, yes.
And I guess the radio was something that the family kind of gathered around in the evenings, maybe, and it was sort of a family affair to listen to what was coming over the radio, wasn't it?
Yes.
Sat around the living room. Well, how was it raising kids in that time period? Were they pretty good kids, or did you have to beat them, or what?
They were wonderful kids.
They were wonderful kids, not just because they were yours, though.
And they still are.
And they still are. Okay.
Every one.
Well, who came along second?
Dorothy.
Dorothy. Okay. Well, let me have the order going on now. Dorothy was born in 32, was she?
That's right.
And then who came?
Then
Remember me?
you were next.
Patricia?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And what year was that?
1936.
36. Well, you had them spread out for a while there, didn't you? The
Well,
kids.
luckily, yes.
Yeah. 36. Okay. And when Patricia came along, where were you living at that time?
We were living on Hemlock.
On Hemlock. I've heard of it.
West End.
Okay. And the kids were going to school in Louisville here then?
Cousin went to kindergarten
Yeah.
down there in Parkland.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, can you tell me...
Name the rest of them. Huh?
Yeah. We got up to Patricia in 36. Who came after that?
Richard,
And what year was he born?
38.
38. And then?
Carolyn in 41.
Carolyn in 41, okay.
And Tom in 46.
46. Okay. And the last one?
Diane, and she was born in 1950.
Well, golly, you had them stretched out for a 20-year period there, didn't you? And so you had some babysitters at home to help with the younger ones.
Yes, I certainly did.
I guess you got in on helping with Diane and
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell me some stories. You know, there's each of the children, you know, over the years, there's things that they do and something you might remember. Can you tell me a story about each one of them? Maybe something that Catherine did in grade school or prior to grade school or something like that?
Well, Catherine wasn't much interested in school, and she was a little bit lazy, and she'd have Dorothy to read the funnies to her. So she finally rebelled, and then she had to learn to read.
Yeah. So, well, did the kids get along pretty well together?
Most of the time. They had their squabbles, but
Yeah. Yes, they do.
they got along real well.
Yeah. Was the period of the 30s there with the Depression and everything, was that a hard time for your family? Was there shortages of clothes and food?
Shortages of everything.
Yeah. So, were there times that you had to eat like beans several times a week, or?
Oh yes, we had a very limited diet.
Yeah. Well, what sort of diet did you have at that time period? Then maybe beans and cornbread.
Oh, Leo loved cornbread.
Yeah.
I made biscuits and cornbread twice a day.
Yeah.
Didn't buy any bread.
Yeah. So, did you make your own butter?
Certainly did.
Yeah. Did you have the kids to do the churning, or did you do that?
Well, they did some, but I did most of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yes, I used to sell butter. At one time, we had 3 cows after we moved out here.
while you were in Louisville?
Right here.
Right here.
Oh, out here. Okay. I see. Had 3 cows here on Terry Lane or
Uh-huh.
Terry Road.
She made butter and sold it.
Yeah, that's neat. Butter
We
and
had
well,
chicken.
did you
We-
do the milking?
No, I never did do that.
Did Leo do that?
Yes, mostly. Richard did sometime, but he's got great big hands, and his hands cramped. He didn't like the milk.
Yeah.
But Tommy did,
Yeah.
so he helped milk.
Yeah. Okay. Through the 30s there, let's see what else was going on. Of course, they had the 37 flood. Where were you then?
Well, we had to leave. We were right here.
You were
No,
right?
No, not 37 flood, no.
We lived
That's
on
right.
University Place.
Yeah, yes, and we lived up on a hill, so it,
Yeah. Well, prior to
We had a
30.
flood in 45, yeah.
Oh, really? I heard prior to 37, it wasn't uncommon for the river to get up every once in a while. Like somebody was telling me about in 35, they had some experiences with it and so forth.
when we bought this house, Leo asked the man how high the water got. He said, he thought it was up on the foundation. So later on, when he was working on the house, he found the water line up above the ceilings.
Did he go back and have a discussion with that fella, or?
No, he let it
Too
go.
late then, huh? Let it go. Okay. But in the 37 flood, where were you at that time? Were you here?
No, we were up on the hill in Clifton Heights. And we could walk over the hill where the Veterans Hospital is now,
Yeah.
and look over and that country club over there
River Road?
on River Road. Only the chimneys were sticking out.
Yeah. It wasn't River Road back then, though. It was, I think it was a Jewish country club at that time. I'm not sure what the name of it
No, I don't think it was then. It became a Jewish country club later.
was. It?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, let's see. So the kids pretty much helped out around the house and took care of one another, and occasionally they'd get in a little scrap, but they got along pretty well, huh?
Yes, they did.
Yeah. Did the girls cut one another's hair when they got old enough to use scissors? Tell me somebody must have cut Patricia's hair.
No, cut everybody else's.
No, when Dorothy was small, I was in the kitchen, and so Catherine kept giggling about something. She could see it, but I couldn't. And Dorothy was cutting her own hair. And she got it so short in the back, and we had to cut it short all over.
Yeah.
And
kids have a tendency to do that, I've found, when talking to people. Just about everybody. If you have 2 or 3 kids together, they usually get together and cut one another's hair once or twice. So did you have to spank these kids?
occasionally.
Yeah. But they pretty much believed when you said you was going to spank them, they knew something was coming, huh?
No, she gave us the evil eye.
The evil eye. Could you demonstrate that? maybe we could get Pat to demonstrate that. Now, what did the evil eye look like?
Well, let's put it this way. You start stopping what you were doing if you were doing something she didn't want you to do, or you started moving if she wanted you to move.
Uh-huh. But she had a way of letting you know she was serious.
Oh, my.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You didn't strike fear in the hearts of these children now, did you?
I don't think so.
Okay. So things were going along through the 30s there. Did you go to movies, or did you have time with the kids and everything to go to the movies in the 30s?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
She sent us to the movies.
Sent us to get them out of the house.
On Sunday afternoon, they went to the movies. I gave them a quarter, and they bought a Mounds bar, so there'd be one apiece.
There was 3 in there at that time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was big enough to go to the movies.
Yeah.
She said me and my 2 older sisters, we'd go to the movie, and she could get rid of us for a whole afternoon for a quarter.
That was a quarter well spent, wasn't it? Okay. Let's see. In 1939, Gone with the Wind came out. Did you go see that?
Yes, I did, the first showing.
Yeah? What?
My sister came over and stayed with the children, and we went in town on the bus.
What movie theater was that playing
A streetcar. It was playing at Lowe's.
Lowe's?
Now call it the Palace.
Okay.
Oh, it's a very fancy movie theater, and they had a big organ, and they played the organ, and the audience would sing. Everybody loved to go to Lowe's.
Yeah? And they have the newsreels and things like that?
Yes, newsreels.
And they have those, he's talking about the audience singing, they have those tunes with the bouncing ball and things like that? Wonder why they don't do that anymore.
They don't do a lot of things that were a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, let's see. You were in your 30s at the time and witnessing different things coming along as far as appliances and things like that. I guess it was kind of a thrill to have a place with a refrigerator. First time you got one, wasn't it?
Well, I had an icebox first.
You had an icebox, okay. Was that here in Louisville?
Yes.
And the iceman would come around?
Uh-huh.
Did you have a little card you put in the window to tell him how much ice you wanted?
I guess I did. I don't remember.
I've heard stories about they had a little card. You turn it one way for so much and turn it another way for another amount of ice. But let's see, and of course they had the electricity and here in Louisville.
Yes.
And that powered your radio and powered your lights. I guess you had a telephone. Well, you're getting uptown then, weren't you?
Well, I finally got a telephone.
Yeah. Well, in the 30s, was it when you got a telephone here in Louisville, or?
Let's see.
Yeah, you had one up on the field, Mom.
Yeah, I know I did.
That would have been the 30s.
Yeah. Well, did you talk on the phone much? Did you ring people up? Or they had party lines back then. Did you listen in on the party line?
No, I didn't listen in on the party line, but I had a party line after I came out here, and people listened in on me.
Had to watch what you said, huh? Yeah.
Tell them how many parties was on that line.
Oh, I don't know. But
There was 8.
Yeah,
you couldn't get a telephone, during the war,
no.
unless you already had one.
Yeah. So.
So the neighbors would come in to use the telephone.
Yeah, I guess that's so. Let's see. What about the news of the war coming? Did you kind of keep up with the news? You said you used to go down and read the paper. Did you kind of keep up with things, or did you have so much at home that you really couldn't spend that much time?
No, we always took a paper.
Yeah. So you knew that the First World War was getting closer then, or Second World War rather.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you have any family that had to partake in that?
My brother was over there.
Yeah.
And that's Lucian.
Lucian. Okay.
Do you remember when we heard them announce the war? Uncle Luke was there that day, remember?
Yes,
Was it 1941, maybe around
Right.
December 7th?
Yeah, wasn't that the day that he got married?
What'd you say?
That was the day Uncle Luke got married, wasn't it?
He got married just before
Just before?
Yeah.
the war was declared.
Who was it we were talking to that got married on December 7th or something? Got married on December 6th, on the Saturday before.
That was when Uncle Luke got married, wasn't
I don't remember exactly when he got married, but he hadn't been married long.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so he was gone about 4 years, I guess. He was in Europe.
he? How long did he live with us? He lived with us for several years before he married. How long did he live with us?
Quite a little while.
yeah. It was more common for family members to gather together back in that time period. Now the families are sort of dispersed and spread out, it seems like.
Yes, well, he came down here and got a job at Reynolds. And so he stayed with us.
Okay. Well, in the 40s there, after the war started, the kids are in school and things are going along. What's Leo doing at this time? What sort of work?
He worked at Reynolds for 40 years.
Oh. So that took a good long time, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
All right, so you were in the 40s. What's going on in the 40s that you can tell me about? The kids are in school. You're still having some young ones around the house. You had little ones around the house about all the time, didn't you? For 20
Yes.
years. Yeah. Were any of the older ones married by the time the little ones came along? No.
No.
We were all living at home when my youngest sister was born.
Yeah.
My sister and I got married in 1954.
You're,
My oldest sister and I got married the same year.
is that right? Yeah. Well, you were only 18 at that time, huh?
She just out of high school.
Just out of high school.
And she was disappointed because she couldn't go to college right away.
Yeah.
And she jumped up and got married and eloped.
Did you whip her?
Well, I felt like it. She had a soldier she had been writing to, and so she wrote him a letter to tell him that she was married. And I saw the letter in there, and I didn't know anything about it. I thought she was just telling him a lie.
She was writing telling that she's already married, and,
Yes.
and at this time you didn't even know it, huh?
No, I didn't know it.
How'd the conversation go at that point right there?
Do you remember?
No. You have to tell me.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little more about the other kids.
And Raymond came out to see her, and I went out and sat on the porch with him.
Was Raymond the husband we're talking about? Okay. Well, let's see. I think you told me a little something about Catherine and Dorothy. Tell me, kids do the darndest things, so tell me a little something about each one of them. Maybe Pat can help refresh our memories here.
Well, Pat used to leave regularly.
She'd run off every
She'd
once-
pack her suitcase and go out and hide in the weeds. She didn't go far.
Well, would she show up about mealtime after
Yeah.
that? So,
The last time I left was when my youngest sister was born. You remember that?
Yeah, you hid upstairs, didn't you?
Yeah, I was mad about something.
yeah.
But my mother had to go to the hospital during the middle of the night and they couldn't find me. They weren't very happy about that.
Uh-huh. Well, let's see. That was 52?
1950.
50.
50.
That was my last episode. I didn't go on the
Uh-huh. Well, okay. And the one just younger than Pat is
Richard.
Richard.
Richard. Well, tell me something about him. Now, he was born, what,
You can tell lots about him.
38.
38. Okay.
Well,
You
he's...
tell him about taking everything apart.
Did he do that?
Yes. Poked the eyes out of their dolls.
Did he ever try to put them back together, the things that he took apart?
Well, it took him a while to learn to get them back together. But we went to town and bought some lawn chairs, metal ones. And Leo said, well, when we get home, said, I'll have to batter this so that Richard can't get them apart. So he went out to the garage to get the tools to do it with. When we got back, he already had one undone.
My God.
Let's see. Well, let's see then.
He later went to speed school.
Yeah? So,
And he was in the Air Force for 3 years. Served in Europe. He was captain when he got out.
okay. Let's see. After Richard, there came
Carolyn.
Carolyn. Now,
Now, surely you can tell something about Carol.
Carolyn was born in 41. Okay. The same year as I had the
The year the war began.
start Second World War. Now, what was she like? She get along with all of them, and everybody get along with her? Tell me about Carolyn.
Well, Carolyn was quite a bird. She used to embarrass Richard to death at school. The
On
things
purpose?
she'd say, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, where did they go to school?
They went to Valley High School and they went to Greenwood School.
Uh-huh.
Now, the last two, they had new schools. Diane graduated from Western, and Tom graduated from Pleasure Ridge Park.
Okay. Well, tell me, as Carolyn was getting a little older there, she went to school, and some of the things that she did. Is there anything that sticks out in your mind that y'all remember?
And she'd sit and think up things to tell that would embarrass Richard. And I can see Richard get in school. We go on the school bus.
Yeah.
And when the school bus would come up to the driveway, Richard would be standing in the door waiting to burst out to come in and tell on it. And he'd say, Mother, do you know what that girl did today? And then proceed to tell whatever it was.
Yeah.
Well, she was in, I guess it was a,
Drinks
what was it, anyway, a cooking class or something. And so they talked about setting a table. And she said, oh, we don't have napkins, we just pass the towel.
Yeah. Let's see. And then, do you remember about the war ending? That might have been a...
Yes, I remember that. My brother came back, and he was over at Shively, and he called up for Leo to come get him. So he loved pork chops, and I was getting ready to cook his pork chops. It was real cold in the kitchen at that time, and I put it on the stove. I guess I turned it up too high and split a skillet.
Split a skillet. I don't know if I've ever witnessed something like that happen. Did a fire ensue after that when the grease got on the hot burner?
It was iron.
No, I had just heated the...
Oh, you were just heating the skillet.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. It did get hot then, huh?
But I hadn't seen him for a long time, really.
Yeah. He still had his pork chops, just cooked in a different skillet.
Yeah.
Okay. Toward, let's see, you said 1946 it was that Tom was born?
Yes.
Yeah. And all the older ones took care of him, and I guess it got a little easier as it went on, huh, maybe?
Well, I don't know about that.
Richard was mighty happy to see him. He felt surrounded by women.
Ah, I see. Yeah.
Richard picked his name.
Yeah.
Tell him what.
Oh, that was his first brother. So he named him after Tom Mix.
Yeah. Oh, that's cute. Radio became, not radio, but television first was introduced there in the late 40s in the Louisville area, and by the early 50s people were getting televisions. Did you get a television before you got Diane, or which
No.
came first?
No, I don't think so.
We got television in 1954, the year I got married.
Uh-huh.
We didn't have television.
Yeah.
See, you remember that better than I do.
If they had a television, you might have stayed home longer, huh?
Not likely.
Well, okay. So Tom was born in 46. Do you remember the first time that you saw television? Again, it's something that we've grown up with. And
Yes, I was going to school at Eastern, and they made a great thing of it. They invited us all to come up and see the new television.
Yeah?
And and I remember how few things they had on it.
Yeah. They did. It only started like at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something like that, and ran to about 10 o'clock at night. It
Yeah.
seemed like. Well, now, you went to school at Eastern at that time period? You went back to college? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I went to college before I was married.
Yeah.
You didn't see television there then, did you? When you were going to school there?
Yes.
You saw television at Eastern?
Uh-huh. I think they paid $3,000 for a television.
Yeah. Well, they didn't. I wonder where they broadcasted from at that time.
I don't remember that.
I don't think at that time period there wasn't a broadcasting.
But they got 2 or 3 little pieces of things, but nothing to write home about.
Was it?
I guess there was some television before the war because what was the name of the studios? Started a D, I think, up in New York. New York they had it.
Yeah, I think it was 48 before they had a station here in Louisville.
Right.
I believe. But you saw one of them before then even.
Yes. But it didn't amount to much, I tell you.
Yeah. So in the 40s there, let's just take any year there, maybe toward the latter part of the war. I'd like to get you to sort of describe a typical day. Let's say when you were 40 years old. That would be in 1946, huh? It doesn't have to be particularly in 46, but I'm just trying to get a feel for what a typical day would be like. You'd get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. What time did you get up in the morning?
About 5. Leo went to work at 7.
So
And he always liked to be early.
Yeah. So you'd be up fixing breakfast, maybe?
And I'd fix him breakfast, and then I'd get the children up in
After
time.
Leo had already gone, you'd start rolling the kids out?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you have a gas stove that you cooked with at that time, or electric, or?
No, I've got an electric stove now, but I had a coal oil stove when I moved out here.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, when you'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you started cooking his breakfast on a coal oil stove, was it?
Yes.
A coal oil stove.
Kerosene.
Kerosene, okay. And how was it cooking on a stove like that? Was that?
Well, you get used to it, I guess.
Did the whole top of it get hot like a wood cook stove, or? I don't know. Did it have burners on it?
Yes, it had burners and an oven.
Yeah. Okay. And so you'd get Leo all off to work, and then you'd start rolling the kids out. Did you have an order in which they came out? Like, did you get the oldest ones up first, or the little ones, or?
It depended on whenever the bus came.
Okay.
Now, after we moved out here, there was no trouble getting the children to school. We had buses all the time, right in front of the door. That's one reason we moved out here.
Okay. So you'd send a number of them off to school, but you'd still have one or two at home, huh?
They always got up early,
Yeah.
so it wasn't in trouble until they got big enough to go to school to get them up because they were up.
Yeah. Always looking for some action, huh?
My sister-in-law, her children were slept till 10 or 11 o'clock. She'd get all of her housework done.
Yeah.
Mine were out.
Yeah. So, I guess breakfast was a stretched out ordeal. In that case, you'd have breakfast for Leo, and then the other ones would get up and you'd have more breakfast and more breakfast, and then get some of them off to school, and maybe you'd still be giving the little ones breakfast.
Yeah, that's right.
So, that went on for
For a long time.
Yeah. So after the kids got going on with a typical day, the kids would go off to school. I guess you had maybe one or two still at home that you had to tend to, and plus clean the house and do the laundry and things like that.
Yes, and I had for a long time I had to heat my water and carry it to the basement, put it in the washer.
Yeah.
And then I didn't have a dryer. I had to hang them on the outside in freezing cold weather.
Yeah. Did you, this washer, was it one of those agitators and a wringer, or?
Agitator and a wringer.
Was it an electric, or?
It was electric.
I've talked to some people that had their first one was a gasoline-powered washing machine with a little gasoline engine that you started and it ran off of that.
Well, Mother had one that you turned it by hand.
Yeah. So the wash day was quite a chore because you'd heat water up here and you'd carry it downstairs to the washing and dump it in, fill it up.
Then carry it out.
And then, you'd have to carry it out too.
And that was one of our chores mostly. Like, she had to wash every other day to keep enough clean clothes for all the bunches. So that meant that, like on Sunday night, you'd have to draw water for the wash, for her to wash Monday. And then when you got home from school, it had to be carried out.
Yeah.
So it was either drawing water for the wash or carrying the water out after the wash.
Almost a daily thing, huh?
A daily thing.
And pumping water for the cow.
Right.
You had a well here that you drew your water from.
Right.
I still do. But now I've got an electric pump.
Yeah, and so when we talk about heating water, you'd have to go to the well and get the water, then bring it in and heat it, and then carry it downstairs, huh?
No, water was carried downstairs and heated downstairs.
Oh, how'd you heat it down there?
What was it, kerosene stove?
Might have been.
I believe it was kerosene stove.
Yeah.
A laundry stove.
Yeah. So you didn't feel like you needed to go to aerobics classes and exercise classes to get your exercise.
Hardly.
Okay. Let's see. I guess about the time you got all the breakfasts done and got the kids dressed and everything and off to school, it was almost time for lunch for the ones that were still here, wasn't it?
That's true.
Yeah. That probably wasn't a complicated operation. Maybe you'd warm up some of the stuff from the night before for lunch.
Well, I'll tell you a joke about that. I was talking to my sister on the telephone one day, and I said, well, I've got to go. I've got to start supper. She said, oh, just give them leftovers. I said, what leftovers?
You had that many kids.
Yeah,
There weren't a lot of leftovers, huh?
No.
How was
He who tarried didn't eat.
Uh,
He who tarried didn't eat.
Yeah. Weren't any bashful kids at the table, right?
Well, my youngest brother got mad one day at mealtime, wouldn't come in and eat. So when they ate, the one that was older fed the rest of it to the dogs. So JB said after that, he never got mad at mealtime.
That wasn't the time to get mad. Okay, so I guess you'd have to start supper about the time the kids got home from school. Did you start a little bit after that?
No, just about that time.
Yeah. And you'd be fixing a meal for 6 or 7 every night. It's a big meal every night, wasn't it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
My husband worked hard. He needed his food.
Yeah. Did you enjoy cooking okay? Was it, or it was always a chore? I guess you enjoyed watching them eat, huh?
Well, I never thought about whether I enjoyed it or not. It was necessary.
Yeah. Well, you know, today some people enjoy cooking more than others.
Well, I didn't mind to cook.
Yeah.
My mother was a good.
Yeah. Well, now after the kids got home from school, the ones that were big enough, you put them to work. And while you were cooking supper, they tended to the little ones, and they had various chores around the house, maybe.
Yes,
Yeah. And then Leo would get home, what, 6 o'clock?
no, about 4, wasn't it? He went to work at 7.
And you'd have supper, and then maybe you had some help cleaning up the supper dishes, huh?
Yes, that's what I required more than anything else, but at that time I was done in.
Yeah. You got a chance to relax a little bit after supper was over.
Yeah, they'd wash the dishes for me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's see.
But they learned a lot of responsibility that way.
Yeah. Well, after supper was over and we're getting on into the evening, then maybe the family would, I guess the kids would have various things to do. Some of them would play outside and some of them would...
For a while, but they had homework.
Homework. And maybe the family would sit around and listen to the radio, or did you all do things together? Or?
Yeah, we did lots of stuff together. At that time, we had piano. And we packed around on the piano.
Yeah.
Some could play, some couldn't. Torment each other. I mean, usually it wouldn't have just one thing going. You'd have the radio going, you'd have the phonograph going, you'd have 50,000 kids in there, because it seemed like they congregated here. We didn't go other places, they came here. And then quiet, that was an unknown word. One brother had a trumpet, and one had a
He played a French horn.
French horn, or lots of noise all the time.
Yeah, it sounds like it could have been. Okay. Then, let's see, going on with this typical day, after the evening meal, the kids gone to do some of the things that they do, you listen to the radio for a while, and then you start putting the kids to bed, huh?
Yes.
The little ones first. Of course, you had a little help from the older ones at that time.
Yes, Catherine was 20, I guess, when Diane was born.
Yeah.
So they helped a lot with those 2 younger ones.
Yeah. So I guess by the end of the day, it was didn't have to take sleeping pills to go to sleep either, did you?
Never did.
So, I didn't ask about your early, about holidays. That's something that, maybe from your childhood that you remember. Do you remember what you got as a child for Christmas? Maybe. What was the usual thing that children would get for Christmas when you were a child?
Well, we didn't get much.
No?
We got fruits that we never had any other time.
You'd get an orange?
An orange or a banana, something like that.
Yeah.
And we got little things like, my grandmother gave me a doll from the 10-cent store. And Mother thought it was too good for me to play with. She hung it up on the wall.
Well, eventually you got to take it down and play with it, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
But it hung there a long time. See, the Francis part of my name was from my grandmother. Her name was Susan Francis. Mm-hmm. And she liked to name all the children. She liked to string names together,
Uh-huh.
So she wanted somebody to name one of them Susan. And at that time, that was an unpopular name. Nobody ever named a Susan.
Really? It's become more popular, I suppose.
Yes, it got real popular recently.
Yeah. Okay, how about your first kids to start dating? Your oldest daughter, while you still had little ones at home, but they were interested in the boys and things like that, and starting to date and everything like that. What sort of period was that for you?
Well, it was kind of funny sometimes. We used to have a door right there into the bedroom.
Uh-huh.
So Dorothy went with a little boy that lived up the lane. And he's kind of timid anyway. And Leo was in bed in there, and he'd drop his shoe first. And then he'd say, bedtime. And that little boy would just fly out of here.
Yeah. I guess for the older ones, it was quite an ordeal trying to bring anybody home to all the other kids that were here and all the harassment they must have gotten, huh?
At times.
At times.
Yeah, it was sort of like a group date.
Yeah. Well, and your first one got married in 1954? Was that
Well, that's it.
Catherine got married?
Yes, and
Oh.
Patsy both.
Okay, now that's another experience, that being a mother and watching your first child get married, that'll be something that other ladies in your family will be able to relate to as their children get married. What's it like? Don't you think, golly, I'm getting a little older now, and my kid's getting married, and what?
Well, Catherine was 25 before she married,
Yeah,
so
you felt like she was old enough to decide, huh?
yes, and she got a good husband.
Yeah. So you were
They
happy.
still get along wonderfully well.
Okay.
Patsy had her little ups and downs. She just married too young.
Yeah.
And Carolyn married at 16. And I was real sad about that because it wound up in divorce.
Yeah. You had 7 children, and they were spread out. You were going through the mothering role for 30 years, I guess, altogether. Can you give some advice for parenting? You know, kids today are a little different than they were when you were raising them up.
Yes, I know. They didn't have the temptation that they have now.
Yeah.
And I believe if there's any way possible, the mothers ought to stay home with the children. I think that's the cause of a lot of trouble.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Got your children getting married in the 50s. There, television was coming in, and the cars were getting longer, and
We still had the same old one.
Yeah. What kind of car did you have?
What's it?
2-door Ford, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was when it's in the 30s, what is that, 39 or something.
I don't know what it was.
An oldie.
Yeah.
We get all those kids in there, and Catherine complained about them stepping on her white socks.
Well, did you have times then you piled all the kids in the car and maybe took them to the fair or something like that?
Oh yes, we did that sometimes.
Yeah.
And we went to visit our people in the country.
That was quite a day's trip, wasn't it? That many kids, I can just picture having all those kids in the car squealing and hollering and driving that far out to the country, and sometimes wondering whether the car was going to make it or not. And did you ever have those situations?
Yes, a few times. Although he kept his car in pretty good shape most of the time.
Yeah.
It didn't quit on us, but
Talking about our big treat when we went to the country.
what's that?
Don't remember?
What's that?
White Castle?
What was
Going
that?
to the White Castle?
Oh yes, when we come back, we look forward all the way home to stop at the White Castle.
Yeah. Now,
And we stopped in Shelbyville sometimes to get ice cream. They had an ice cream place out there where they made their own ice cream.
what kind of numbers we talking about when you go into the White Castle with that many kids? Like, give me 20, or when they got to the White Castle, they probably ate quite a few of them, didn't they?
Oh, they eat a couple of pieces.
Oh, wasn't that bad then, huh?
No, it wasn't that bad.
I can just picture you carrying out sacks of White Castles there. In the mid-50s, the atmosphere was a Cold War situation going on. The Russians had developed the atomic bomb, and we had the atomic bomb, and Eisenhower was president, and Khrushchev came over and beat his shoe on the podium there at the UN. And they were trying to get people to build fallout shelters. Did you ever consider doing one?
Oh, yes. Tom tried to dig one back in the field. He got all excited about that.
He took it upon himself. Now Tom, born in 46, he would have been only about 10 years old.
Yes, I know.
He probably didn't get too deep, did he?
No.
Yeah, okay. In the 50s, there may be some grandchildren came along.
Yes, Catherine's got 2 children.
Yeah. Maybe first one's born in the 50s sometime?
55, I think.
55, I think.
Sarah was born 55.
Yeah.
She's got 2 girls.
Yeah.
And Patsy's got 1 boy.
He was born 56.
Yeah. In 55 and 56 there, did Patricia, did she like Elvis Presley when he came out?
My husband did.
Yeah. Thought you might be about the age that would have enjoyed something like that, or maybe...
No, Carolyn enjoyed him.
Carolyn was the one that liked Elvis, huh?
Yeah, and my husband liked him too. He was okay. I mean, he wasn't my favorite.
Take him or leave him, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, the space race started in the 50s. The Russians sent up Sputnik, and we tried to get into the space race also. We had our first manned flight, I think it was about 1961. Were you watching that on television when we had our...
Oh, I'm sure I did.
Let's see, Alan Shepard, I think, was the first one up. And Kennedy...
And Glenn was before that, he wasn't actually...
John Glenn, I think he's the first one that...
He was the first one to orbit in outer space.
Orbit, yeah. Yeah. Okay, see what else was going on. Nixon and Kennedy had a little runoff there in 1960. Did you vote in 1960?
Yes, I'm sure I did.
Nixon or Kennedy?
Oh, I didn't vote for Kennedy.
We must have voted for Nixon in that case.
Yeah.
He's the only other one running. All right, and then as far as the news items were going, of course, there was a lot of tension in about 62 when they had the Cuban Missile Crisis thing. You probably remember that.
Richard was in the Air Force at that time.
Who was?
Richard.
Uh-huh. So you watched some of the goings-on. When you have a son in the service, you kind of...
Well, they were on their way to Cuba when Kennedy just suddenly changed his mind.
Yeah.
My brother was in intelligence.
And I thought that was terrible because that Bay of Pigs, you know,
Yeah.
they were expecting to be supported and they weren't.
Yeah.
Some of them are still in prison, I think.
So now, was he going to be involved in the Bay of Pigs thing? Was he supposed to be part of the support?
Oh, he was in intelligence at the time. I don't
Uh-huh.
know exactly what, he wasn't able to tell us what exactly went on until many years later.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just about everybody remembers where they were when Kennedy was shot in the 60s.
Oh, yes.
Where were you?
I was watching television.
So you were right on top of things.
Yeah, that's right.
You saw him run it back on television
Yeah.
right through Dallas.
Sad thing.
Yeah, it was. Well, we witnessed a lot of changes in the 60s. Birth control came about, or more efficient birth control came about, and society changed somewhat. We had the race relations was changing somewhat with the marches on Selma and the various places in the 60s there, and the kids were letting their hair grow longer. I bet Tom let his hair grow long, didn't he? Huh?
No, not Tom.
Not too much.
You'd have to know Tom. Tom has got the god-awfulest amount of hair that anybody ever had. He was just trying to keep it under control by keeping it cut.
Yeah. So you didn't have any hippie kids, is that what you're saying?
That's right.
Yeah? What'd you think about all these guys growing long hair over their ears and stuff like that?
I thought it was disgraceful.
But it was something that wasn't involving your family, though, huh?
No.
Some of them might have been old enough to be involved in the Vietnam conflict that was taking place in the 60s. Did any of your kids have to?
No. Tom was in college at the time,
Uh-huh.
and Richard wasn't called back.
No. Okay. So.
They told him to take care of his uniforms when he got out. And he took care of them. I think he still got them.
Yeah, but he couldn't get in them if he tried.
So.
Did we talk about each one of the kids?
Well, we're still talking about Tom, and we haven't said much about Diane yet, other than did she get spoiled?
She's still spoiled.
She's still spoiled. Now, who did that? Was it the other kids that spoiled her, or was it you?
It was all of us, I think.
All of us.
She had a disability when she was born. And during the birth, she was injured. Her arm was, and so it's still a little bit shorter than the other one.
Yeah.
But she had to take exercises and all kinds of therapy for a long time, and then she had to have an operation to stop it from drawing up further.
Yeah.
So that's one reason we spoiled her so much.
Yeah. Well, how about Tom being the second to the youngest? Did he sort of resent her getting so much attention?
No, he got a lot of attention too.
He did too, huh? Okay. Well, having them spread out like that, I guess everybody had their chance in the spotlight, huh?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
We tried to plan it that way.
Yeah.
That's why Patsy couldn't go to college at the time that she wanted to go. Now, Dorothy worked for 7 years and then went to send herself to college. And she's got a master's degree.
In what?
Education.
In education.
She's supervising student teachers right now
Yeah.
down in Middle Tennessee.
In Middle Tennessee. Okay. Let's see. We were talking about the 60s there. The space race was hot and heavy during that time, and we were trying to get to the moon, and I guess maybe you were tuned into the TV when they landed on the moon too, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Sort of
I
exciting.
watched a lot of TV.
Was it sort of exciting for you to watch?
Yes, it was.
And so you enjoyed TV? That's something.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Was it soap operas? Did you like soap operas, or did you enjoy just all?
Oh, I watched some soap operas, but I watched mostly the news and the things that were going on.
Yeah. Well, you kept up with Chet Huntley and David Brinkley during that period.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. The news and the Vietnam War was one of the first that was brought into the homes over the television. It's sort of a shocking thing, wasn't it?
It still is. It's shocking to me to think about. We lost over 50,000 soldiers over there.
With no apparent goal in mind from the start.
No.
It seems like. Let's see.
Tell about your, when you taught school, what was you got, that you were paid $75 a year?
I got $73 a month for the first year.
$73 a month? Back down at Flat Rock?
Flat Creek.
Flat Creek. Uh-huh. Excuse me.
But I just taught down there 1 year.
Well, $73 a month was a lot of money then.
Well, they only had 70 months, though,
Yeah.
in the grade school.
Yeah. So, let's see. I guess the kids, did they come all sizes and shapes? How many classes did you teach? Did you teach 1
8
through?
grades.
You taught all 8 of them?
Uh-huh. We combined 2 of them. The 1 year we'd have the 6th grade, next year we'd have the 7th.
Oh, I see.
No, the 5th grade and the 6th, and the 7th and the 8th.
Uh-huh.
But they were such small classes, you know.
Yeah. I guess some of the kids were pretty old. They could have been in the 8th grade, maybe been 15, 16 years old, huh?
Yes.
Or even older, some of them. Let's see. Getting back to the 60s, the early 70s, you got grandkids coming along, and in the 70s there, did you vote for Nixon again? You voted for him in 60. Did you vote for him in 68?
Yes.
72?
I like Nixon.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to ask about. You know, people have opinions about Nixon, and they judge him not just from Watergate, but from all the other things that he did as well. You feel like he was a pretty good president?
I thought so. And he got a lot of respect from foreign countries.
China and Russia?
But our people, they don't treat their presidents right.
Is this something you've noticed of late, or is this something you've noticed?
Well, that's been going on several years, of course. I didn't even think about him not being a good president for a long time.
Yeah.
But I just think it's terrible the way they pick at Reagan, for instance.
Yeah.
I don't think he's been that bad a president.
Does the best he can, I'd say, huh?
Well, that's what I think. He just got into a mess to start with.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't really like the way he handled the farm problem.
Yeah.
See, my father lost his farm in the Depression.
Yeah.
And Leo's father also lost his farm.
Uh-huh.
And my father, until he got married, his father drew his wages. And he started out with nothing. And he managed to bring himself up to get the kind of a farm he wanted. And the Depression came along and he lost it. And he only owed $6,000 on it. And it ruined his life.
Yeah, that would be a big factor, wouldn't it? Well, let's see. We witnessed Nixon leaving the presidency, and then Ford. What sort of comments would you make about Jimmy Carter as a president?
I thought he was an ignoramus.
Oh, come on now, tell me how you really felt. Don't hold back on me here.
Well, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Okay. And then you were probably watching TV when the hostages got taken in '79, was it? I think sort of upset everybody. And Carter was president. What did you think about the hostages being taken in Iran?
Well, I thought it was terrible that they didn't do more about it.
Thought he should have gone in there and kicked a little butt?
Well, they ought to have done something to rescue those people.
Yeah. Well, they did finally get them all out alive. That's one good thing that came out of doing it the way he did. I don't know what would have happened had he gone in with some force.
No, I don't know either. I guess I didn't know enough about it.
Yeah. The presidency's gotten to be a real big job, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. And I wouldn't want the job myself.
I can imagine. Let's see. You witnessed a lot of medical changes over a lifetime. You know, when you were a child, your sister died of appendicitis, and it'd be unheard of for someone to die of that in our society now. We've witnessed heart transplants and kidney transplants, and now they're doing heart and lung transplants and artificial hearts and all sorts of things. What's been the most amazing medical discoveries that you've witnessed? Anything come to mind right away?
How about penicillin? Saved up.
Oh, yes. Dorothy had appendicitis, and they operated, and she already had some inflammation, and our family doctor suggested they use some sulfa, sprinkled sulfa, and the surgeon said it makes them so sick. So the very next day, she was seriously ill, a high fever, and she had a terrible time. We thought we were going to lose her, and they brought in penicillin from out of the country. Not out of the country. I think it came from Chicago. It was new then,
Yeah.
and that's all that saved her life.
About how old was she? About what year was this?
About 12.
That would put it about in the 40s?
Yeah, when we first moved out here.
Yeah.
About 44, 40,
Mhm.
about 44.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually, it was an experimental drug at that time, and you had to get a special court order to get it, and it had to be flown in every day because it was in such short supply. It had to be flown in every day.
Yeah. I think they were still making it from bread mold at that time, weren't they?
Possibility, and it was to be used for the soldiers only, and you had to get a special release in order to have it for a civilian case at that time.
Yeah. It's sort of hard to surprise people anymore with all the medical wonders that they've got. What did you think about them transplanting the baboon heart 1984 into the baby?
Well, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Well, she might have been able to live. Of course, she didn't, as it turned out. They haven't even tried it again since then, but there's some ethical or spiritual reason maybe that you would be opposed to the transplanting of an animal heart into...
Well, I think that an animal has a different constitution than a person.
Yeah. Just the physical
Yes.
opposition to it. Okay. Can you give me a definition of happiness? What's happiness?
Well, I enjoyed my children, every one of them. I lived with my husband 69 years.
59.
59.
59 years.
59 years. And we never had a serious disagreement. I would say I was happy.
Yeah. So, the family situation adds to the quality of life, huh?
Yes.
59 years, let's see. When was it you lost your husband? This year?
May.
Oh, it's very easy to remember. That'll be something, in our society, the ladies outlive the men. So oftentimes a lady will have to go through a situation as a widow. What helps you through a situation like that? That's one of the most difficult things you've ever had to experience, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And I have a lot of help. The children are good to help me.
Yeah.
But, he did so many things that it's a drag to get it done now,
Yeah. Some of the things that you enjoyed doing together is
Yes.
not much fun to do.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. Can you give me a definition of love? Love's something you hear in the songs and everybody talk, I love this, I love that. What is love based on what you've learned over the years?
Well, I love my husband, I love my children, I love my sisters and brothers and my mother.
Yeah.
And
Hard to define, isn't it?
it's hard to define, yes.
Yeah. How do you handle the aging process? What, 80?
I'll be 82 in January.
82 in January. Now, you've had a chance to witness your 40s and the 50s and your 60s and your 70s already. Now, I'm going to be going through this, and other people that watch it, what's it like going through the aging process? Do you have to gradually give things up that you used to be able to do?
Absolutely.
Yeah? How have you dealt with it?
Not too well. I have diabetes and I'm losing my sight.
Uh-huh.
A lot of things I can't do on account of that.
Yeah. So, what sort of advice would you, or is there anything that you could tell me about the aging process, or you could tell Pat about the aging process that she's going to have to go through too, that...
Well, I hope not. Well, if she lives to be old, she probably will.
Well, what's it like, is it a lot of difference between being 50 and 60, or?
Indeed, yes.
Yeah? You noticed quite a lot of change in those 10-year period?
Well, my son took us on a good many trips back then, but I haven't been able to do anything like that lately.
Yeah. All right. How do you handle your own mortality? You know, that nobody lives forever, and at some point in time you have to deal with it. I suppose your husband passing away brought it closer to home that you have to think about something like that.
I never thought I'd outlive him.
Because he was so healthy and robust? Or?
He had been.
Yeah.
He'd been very healthy.
Yeah.
And that's why we could manage as well as we did, because he did so many different things, you know, to keep things going.
Yeah. Well, how do you handle your own mortality, though?
Well, I don't worry about that. What I worry about is being disabled.
Yeah. So your health is an important...
Yes, I take the very best care of myself that I can, because I don't want to be a burden on somebody else.
Yeah.
And because I don't want to be disabled.
Yeah. Okay. If you had a wish, what would it be?
Well, I don't want to live forever.
No.
That's true.
But you want to be of reasonably good health until that time, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't worry about death.
No. How, do you have a certain spiritual part of your character? Has church ever been a factor in your life?
Oh, yes.
What?
I started going to Sunday school and church when I was a child back in Nineveh.
Yeah.
And I joined the church up there. It's a Christian church.
Uh-huh. And so your spiritual beliefs, have they changed over the years, or they pretty much stayed the same?
Just about the same.
Yeah.
And my husband is very active in church.
Uh-huh.
And all the other community things. He belonged to the Improvement Club and the AARP and what else?
Taxpayers.
Taxpayers League.
Homeowners. Wool and Yard Wives Democratic Club. What was the name of the Republican club he belonged to?
I don't remember.
And somebody said, well, I thought you were a Republican, Bill. And he said, you have to watch them all.
That's good. You have to keep an eye on all of them.
Right.
Yeah. I guess he had opinions about everything, didn't he?
Indeed, yes.
Huh?
Yes, he did.
And he'd share them
Very
with you
strong,
today, huh?
very strong opinions.
Yeah. Are you like that yourself, or you let him pretty much do the political side of things?
I think I let him do most of it.
Yeah. Well, how would you like to be remembered in the future? When they talk about Grandma or Gertrude or whoever, how would you like to be remembered?
Well, I hope they'll have some good memories.
I'm sure they will. I guess they'll remember you for being mom and cooking and taking care of all the kids and stuff.
Oh, yes, I used to cook the Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners. Leo's birthday, that was a big celebration. He was born on July the 4th.
Ah. So the family gatherings is something that you enjoyed over the years.
Yes.
Yeah. And
He enjoyed it, too. He would have been 87 if he'd lived till July the 4th.
87. My father's 88 now.
Well, his father lived to be 94.
Yeah. Okay, what sort of clothes can we put on? You might as well tell them all that you love them. And
Well, they know that.
they know that already.
I tell them that all the time.
Do you?
Diane, there's a package in there with some pictures on it.
What about
It's a brown envelope.
We're going to get some pictures on now. Yeah.
Did you know any whites in Anderson County or Lawrenceburg?
I used to.
My grandfather was raised in Anderson County.
Oh, really?
His name was Tom White.
The name sounds familiar. You dropped one. Yeah, I wanted to show these.
Yeah, you can get you some water there too. We got. Okay, I'm gonna. You can go over there with her. I'm gonna turn the television so you'll be able to see whether there's a glare on the picture or not. Now focus in on it.
Okay.
You can sort of help her. Okay.
Now that's Leo working in his garden.
Okay, let me zoom in on that and focus. There's Leo there. He's got a pretty big garden. I can't tell, are those potatoes that he's sowing on there? I see cabbage on one side.
I don't know what this.
I don't, you can't hardly
Can you hardly tell what kind of plants those are?
Here's
Not
one
much
other.
farmer.
Was that one taken right out on the front here?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How recently was that picture taken?
Oh, I don't know how many years ago. They
Since he was
took
8.
it.
Yeah.
They took it to
Got a shot of
the Shively News. We took it.
Yeah.
He had a nickname. What was his nickname? Mr. Southwest?
Mr. Southwest.
Here's an article.
There's an article in there about him.
Leo Harrod, a man who just doesn't give up.
Yeah, it shows the same pictures there. Oh, what other pictures have you got there? Maybe you can tell me who they are. We might as well get those on here in the last few
Let's
minutes.
see. He was a representative of the union.
This is
Oh,
his
that's
union
a-
picture.
Uh-huh.
This is the union picture.
Let me. I sure can't pick him out.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yes, on there.
That's him right there. I was considerably younger. You have to remember he'd been retired almost 25 years.
Yeah.
His hair was still black. or red or whatever it's called.
There he is. I don't know where that is. Do you, Pat?
Looks like Southwest.
American Legion.
Yeah, that was over. It looked like one of his rentals.
Let's see.
Yeah. Which one is he in that one?
I don't even see him.
Now that was my
Here
older,
he is. Here he is.
Oh, okay.
older brother.
Okay.
And that was Richard.
This is this is your son, Richard.
Uh-huh.
Let's see what Richard looks like. Yeah. Okay.
This is our oldest brother.
That was George?
George.
That was one of those pictures that you had with the scene in the background, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He wasn't really at Versailles or anything. Yeah, I got that one. How about it? Got any pictures of you when you were footloose and fancy free? And
There's one of Leo.
This is my dad.
Oh, yeah. Refocus here.
There's another picture of him.
He was wild about that white suit. People would call him the colonel when he wore that white suit. And he was buried in it.
Is this the two of you?
No, that's some other
Oh, okay.
person in his union.
Who are these people?
Now there's
That's Leo and a lady in his union.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that's your son, Richard,
and here's
Air Force.
there's Richard in his band uniform in high school.
Now, Richard was born in 41?
No, 38.
38.
Richard's kind of our mainstay of our family.
This is my uncle. He was a storyteller
That's
too.
Richard in his band uniform there.
Yeah, and
That's my Uncle Jack,
okay.
great Uncle Jack.
Let's see what Uncle Jack looked like there.
And
He looked like quite a character.
He was.
Yeah.
He's a storyteller.
And that is Leo's father when he was young. I
And
didn't.
what was this man's name?
Dennis,
Leo's father.
Dennis Harrod.
Dennis what?
Harrod.
Dennis Harrod. Oh, I guess it would be, wouldn't it?
Mm. This was my father a long time ago.
Quite a character.
This is her father.
Chopping wood, huh? Where was that picture taken, do you know?
That's in Anderson County.
Anderson County.
That was a wood pile behind our house.
Wonder, is that house still there?
I think it burnt.
Oh. Okay. How about you? I hadn't seen any pictures of you way back when. I bet you got
Well,
some.
I had some, but I didn't get them out all.
This is Pat Logston at
18.
At 18. And here's Tommy
Harrod at 13.
at 13. Looks like Leave It to Beaver, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And this is Susan Wash.
Susan Wash, Gertrude Smith.
Well, her name was Baxter before she
Maternal grandmother.
Before she was married, it was Baxter. Okay. Now, I wonder, just rough idea of when that picture was made?
Do you know when Susan Baxter?
That was when she was young, I think.
Fairly young. Don't look like no spring chicken. And here's Gertrude
Yeah, that was taken before she married, so that would have been.
in the 20s. And can't see it any better than that, actually.
Yeah, it's not a very good picture. That's my
And
dad.
here's Leo at 21,
Right.
which would have been about 1922 or something.
21. He was born 1900.
1921. Yeah. And here's Catherine and Dottie at
1936.
1936. Southern Belles with their umbrella, their parasols. And
That was in 1974, my parents. We went to the celebration at Harrodsburg. You know, they had that, what was it, centennial, bicentennial?
it must have been. Okay. What else you have there? Is that the two of them? Have they got the same clothes on they had in the previous picture there? No, I don't guess they do.
No. I don't know when that was taken. Might have been at their 50th. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's Carolyn and her granddaughter.
Here's a happy birthday 85. Okay.
Yeah, Mom wanted that on. It's my sister Carol and her granddaughter. Christina.
Carol's granddaughter.
Christina. That's Carol and Christina.
Yeah.
She just got one granddaughter.
Yeah.
So you have one great granddaughter.
No, she has
No.
several.
Has several now, huh?
Yeah, I got five, I think.
Okay.
I have a grandson and a granddaughter, and Carol has one, and Catherine has two boys. I guess that's all.
Yeah. Well, have you got any more that you'd like to put on here at that time?
Well, I hunted up some and
Did
they
you?
got misplaced. Pictures of Richard's house.
My brother lives in Racine. He worked for Harvester until they kind of took Louis.
Yeah. A discouraging situation.
Yeah, especially if you knew more about it. He was in management there, and they tried to get some help, and they wouldn't have had very much financial help from an outside source to have stayed here. And they went up and stayed tried to get an appointment with Martha Lane Collins.
Yeah.
She refused to see them.
They sat there for a week when she was first inaugurated.
Oh.
She refused to see them, and then finally she told her secretary came out and told her that she had to get a dress for her inauguration, and she didn't have time to be bothered with them.
Uh-huh. So there's not any real Martha Lane fans in the house right
No.
now?
I think she's a crook.
Oh, come on now, tell me how you really feel.
Another one. She's another crook. We got a lot of crooks in Kentucky, as you're well aware.
They publicized it this time, didn't they? About buying votes. I can remember people going to polls and staying all day.
waiting for somebody to come pay them.
Somebody to come pay them before they vote.
And then they could go in and vote any way they wanted, huh?
Well, I guess it could. Don't know whether they did or not.
Well, I don't know. If somebody wanted
My father insisted on you going to vote. If you didn't go to vote, you better not tell him. Because he'd have a fit.
Uh-huh. Did he give you any help on who you might select when you went to...
Did he give you any help? Yeah, he would give you a list if you would like.
Well, Darrell Owens bought a bunch of card tables for the center.
Sun Valley Center.
Uh-huh.
Mom, I don't think you got any new ones there. I think it's on old ones. They're all old.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a million pictures. I haven't had time to go through them all. I had a picture of your daddy when he was 4 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. My daddy said the best thing he liked about being 80, he could kiss all the pretty girls and nobody said a word. The best thing he liked about being 80.
Well, I'm hoping there's a lot of things to look forward to
At 80.
as the years go by. It's considering the fact that everybody gets older, I'd like for it to be something to look forward to rather than something to dread.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Well, he enjoyed himself. I will say that. But I didn't think he was going to die when he did.
no. Well, that's something that you're never really ready for, isn't it?
No, but he'd always had such good health.
Yeah.
But then he got a heart problem.
Yeah.
So
So,
they gave him some kind of, they misdiagnosed his case and gave him a strong antibiotic and stopped his kidneys. They never could get them started again.
yeah.
He was really only down 3 weeks.
When you think back, just from the way you've described him, he'd probably rather have it go quickly like that than to have a lingering illness, wouldn't he?
Well, that's the only thing I could comfort myself with.
Yeah.
He'd been very unhappy if he couldn't get around and do what he was used to doing.
Yeah.
The day before he went to the hospital, he taught his Sunday school class in the morning. He went to see one of his friends in the afternoon. Next day he went to the hospital, and 3 weeks later he was dead.
Wow. It's amazing. It's amazing. Well, I want to thank you for the time you've spent with us.
I'm afraid it hasn't been very profitable.
Well, it's been enjoyable. Profit is not one that motivates you. I enjoyed
But
it.
I'm sure there was other things I could have told you that would have been more interesting.
Well, perhaps we'll put an update on this at another time. As an overall view of life, it's been enjoyable, and you'd like to go through it all again?
Not that we haven't had our tragedies.
Yeah. Now, what sort of advice would you give for someone just an overview of life? What's the best thing to keep you moving along smooth?
Well, I think you have to take things as it comes and try to make the best of it.
Okay. Well, we appreciated the time we spent with you today. And we're
Get over and hold one up and show her how big they are.
Yeah. You want to explain them to her, Mama?
Get over, Captain.
You want me to be my mom?
Yes. And you do the talking.
Well, tell little David to look at it.
David? Look at great-grandmother's flowers.
This is rhododendron.
Isn't it beautiful?
Tomatoes like
Purple.
that.
All right, little David.
You explain it to me.
This is the way you grow tomatoes.
Here's your rose.
Little David, that's the way you grow peppers down that line.
Oh, okay.
A little further over, little David, that's the way you grow cabbage.
How many you got and all that?
I am a professional gardener, little David. I can give you a lot of pointers. All you got to do is follow my information, and you'll be a professional, like I am.
You can ride this tricycle on the sidewalks, on the road, on the roof. He's got names for it. All that rain
There's one.
There's one. That's cute.
Tomatoes are growing little, slow. They're bigger more than I said around.
There goes the late Richard Harrod.
Yeah, we like when they go. They're slow till they get like that. He wants to get on there. Turn around. There you go. Who's Pepperdine? Hey, who wants yourself with Pepperdine? Nice curve. Go ahead, John. Candy.
What?
Who's Pepperdine?
I don't know.
You ever get married? That's got music. What is the name? Pepper Piper? I don't know what you're talking about. She knows what I'm talking about.
How are you?
Oh, I know what it is now. Flashing. Hiding those eggs. Look at that.
Yeah, I'm glad they cut the knife.
I'd imagine he's cutting around his house back there. I don't know. I didn't look back.
Oh, he cut it like this.
Say, he's got a bush hog with his tractor. How long you had that one? That guy's name is Fly Shaker.
Yeah, be sure to get a picture of my cat. No, get in his picture. Did he look up the camera? Smile. Look up there and smile. Hear me? Look up and smile. Yeah. Look up and smile. Here. Smile. Smile. Or hit.
Yep.
Give me the whooping. Yeah.
Would you do that?
I'm going back to see if I can see what all this cutting's back here. I guess fellow got the back.
Hey!
Okay. Okay, let's explain the perimeter. Okay, there's not any other than the picnic table. From this sidewalk to the fence, the red picnic table, or that one over there? That one right there. See that, the part that is on, right there, that's not past there, all the way to the fence, around to the front fence, no further than the bird feeder. Oh, to the bird feeder right there, from the bird feeder to the fence.
No running and no cheating.
Which one do you want to use? That one? Oh, okay.
No running, no cheating.
Okay. Okay, just a minute, I'm watching. Right on the second thing. So they only got 10 minutes and you can go. 10 seconds. 10 seconds. 10 seconds. Okay. Okay. Look up this way.
Derek, you want some eggs?
Come on, Derek.
Well, I didn't have any big boys. That's when you hide them. You don't have to count.
So watch out, somebody's gonna find them again.
Oh, no, that's not all of them. That's not all of them. There's plenty more.
Are you through looking there?
Okay, there's a basket on the porch, so grab it. There's
Tammy wouldn't have What happened to all your Easter?
So I was wondering where Derek went.
Well, I don't know. It's Friday. You look pale. You look
He had some good Sundays.
Jamie, I got one whole basket of chips.
I just got something on my lens. I'll probably have that on my pictures.
There's your little bunny rabbit. A doll that when I was selling, when I was buying, working for a buyer at Stratton and Tursty.
Pitiful Pearl.
Poor pitiful Pearl.
Next morning, got up and went to Nagoya.
Come here.
Came to Taiwan. Friday morning, then we went to a business lunch and a business dinner. Friday morning, I'm on a plane to Tokyo.
Yeah.
Then I'm back in LA. I'm back in San Francisco.
Derek, bring yours.
Then I get on a plane, go to Las Vegas, and stay there for
Here, we'll sit over here. Oh, you want to come down here? I'll make it right. You want to sit there on the... Christina,
I said there's plenty of them going.
Tammy! Look, I got one of
Get up, get up.
Oh, wait a minute. See. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
10 million kids.
You didn't get Christina.
Yeah, I know where that is.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, there's plenty of chairs out there.
You didn't get one?
Well, there used to be one in another location. Not out there. Yeah, there was, because I ate
Got plenty of them in the barn.
Okay, let's
A
see.
dollar?
Bring 2 or 3 of them out.
Dollar!
Christina, there is no dollar. Okay, that's all right.
Oh, like behind.
Yeah. Okay, wait a minute. We just, you can give your dad his.
That's what I was thinking. Hampton Inn and Hilton. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I know where the Sheraton was kind of going. I think we had a pizza one too far or something. If somebody gave us out of their one of those little dining rooms. That's a little bit high for him, I think.
Oh, what wonderful.
Look how much money I get. Grandma, come here. Look, all these are
Well, I just
25
don't turn the TV on there for
Okay, well, we'll get there.
if anything's blowing up or on fire.
I got a dollar.
Did any of your corner ones have an
Pancake box, didn't they?
Well, I think that's terrible. I was like,
Oh, you had one like that?
hey, you did.
He was 80 years old when I met him. You remember him? Oh, Paul, fella Monterey.
Oh, Johnny.
They bring him down for the Derby thing. I guess he's dead now. I don't know.
Oh, he's up right here. Yeah, I know.
Bring it to me. Go get that.
No,
We'll go over to convenient. Get it.
not getting you.
Derek, get that. Derek, get that. We'll go over convenient. Get that $1. Derek.
There's your money.
You're the grandpa.
Okay. First try this. Dottie, that's my fault.
Put those waters in your shoes. You know? Put them in your shoes, dog. You cut your own foot in.
You want to do a pencil in his hand.
Hey, you got this little hole in the floor.
Can you already get on your picture? Now, and the one with your name on it. Well, they say, here's yours. Straight.
Take it back and take you.
Here's yours, Christina. Here's yours.
Right?
All the plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to get it.
Fruit stand out there or something.
It's that time.